Welcome to Save As Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David Darkangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert.
Welcome back to another episode of Save As Ability. We've got great news here today. This actually wasn't the episode we were planning to do, but news happens and we want to follow it for you and cover it. And really, what I think is one of the biggest developments for people with disabilities in a long time, and it's a really good thing. This is executive action that the president has taken, and particularly it's the executive order relative to lowering prescription drug prices. So let's get right into it. Really, what we're talking about here is a major policy development that could dramatically impact people with disabilities in a positive way, in actually two ways. One, the programs that many people with disabilities are enrolled in, Medicare, Medicaid, and the manner with which those programs then procure these medicines, these pharmaceuticals, those costs are going to be impacted significantly. So the buying power of Medicare and Medicaid is going to increase greatly because it's going to lower costs. That's a really good thing. And then ultimately, the main takeaway is this is going to benefit all Americans who are using these drugs. And we know that people with disabilities oftentimes are using them at a higher rate than people without disabilities. So let's get right into it. So this could dramatically impact, again, older Americans, anyone who takes prescription drugs on a regular basis here in America. So President Trump signed an executive order that's aimed at lowering prescription drug costs by asking pharmaceutical companies and really making a better deal with pharmaceutical companies. It's going to hold them responsible and accountable. And it's going to say that why should the United States solely, bear the large amount of the costs? And so, most favored nation status, we're going to get into that a little bit. The main takeaway, though, is that this will lower drug costs for Americans, and particularly Americans that are using Medicare and Medicaid. So this is a great thing. So it matters to the disability community because according to the CDC, I just looked this up, somewhere around 60% of adults with disabilities live with multiple chronic conditions that require pharmaceuticals. So these medications aren't a luxury. These are like lifelines and really help promote all the things we talk about here. Access to opportunity, independence, self-determination, mobility, basic health, really. So for millions of people who are using these medications through the Medicare and Medicaid programs, these are very significant outcomes that we're going to be facing here. So what does the executive order do? Let's go through a couple of the key actions. And that is that U.S. drug prices will get a most favored nation price, meaning that the United States will pay no more than the lowest price paid by any other developed country. So there'll be parity finally. That is huge. Another thing is that it really kind of eliminates the middleman in a lot of this, like pharmacy benefit managers and, so all of those programs that have been set up as like workarounds, a lot of that will now come back to parity, which is a good thing. And so another provision here is it gives drug manufacturers 30 days to come to the table to lower prices voluntarily, or really then the executive branch has the ability in regulations to take action. So the drug companies don't want that regulatory action. So this brings them to the table to really now have a much better costing structure and pricing structure, particularly for a lot of drugs that are very well established and, where the R&D claims that these drug companies make, like, oh, the research and development. Yeah, that's probably true. It probably does. But a lot of these drugs that have been very well established for decades, that argument really isn't there. So this expands pricing reforms for both Medicare and Medicaid, which covers tens of millions of Americans and including a large amount of people with disabilities. So basically, to sum up, the federal government is using its massive purchasing power to level the playing field and stop Americans from subsidizing cheap drugs in other places. Why is it that you drive over the border in Canada and a drug that costs $10 here, costs $1 there, or same thing in Mexico with these other places? That's not fair. Now we're looking at better parity. This is tremendous. This isn't about politics. This is about principles. This is about dignity and bringing fairness back to Americans. And, these life-saving medications, and oftentimes for people with disabilities. And, this is great. It provides increased accountability for the pharmaceutical industry and really helps sustain Medicare and Medicaid long-term, because prescription drug costs are a main driver of these rising costs. So anything we can do to now have a better control over that, I think, is a good thing for people with disabilities. This approach is like a free market approach. It's great. It encourages competition, transparency. The negotiations that will happen here are really going to help the public good overall. So now, just to be honest and cogent, not to be overtly political here at Save Visibility, because, we play it down the middle. So there are definitely details to be worked out here and some challenges. The pharmaceutical lobby, which is a very big lobby in Congress, they're going to have their say. I'm sure they're probably already working Congress right now, trying to figure out all the details and everything. Certainly there'll be like legal and logistical things to work out. And savings may take time to ripple out and, to actually make its way to the shelf, if you will, or the pharmacy, if you will. So, but this is a good thing. Any way you slice it, this is a good thing. And if implemented wisely, this order has the potential to really transform Medicare, Medicaid, and ultimately Americans with disabilities that rely on these medicines. This is a good thing. This is a positive development. Now, whether you like President Trump or not, or the Republicans or not, this is a good thing. Let's all come to the agreement here that lower drug costs for Americans is a good thing. It's well overdue. I congratulate President Trump and the rest of his team for really having the guts to be able to do this, because this is a big thing to take on. But he's taking it on, and we're pleased here at Save Visibility to support that effort. So I'm sure we'll have more about this in future episodes, but I did want to come on here and update you, because this is a big deal for people with disabilities, for all Americans. But I think it's a really positive step towards parity, and this can help improve health outcomes. We're for that here at Save Visibility. So I'm fired up as usual. It's David Darkangelo, another episode. I hope you have a great day.
For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save As Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save As Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David Darkangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.